Hello and welcome to The Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Rakhee Bakshee. This is a show which gives you deep insight into the life, career and vision of a leading personality. And this is the special edition of The Quest that we are bringing to you right from Karnataka. And the guest with her here right now is Ms. Kiran Mazumdar, who is a veteran biotechnologist and also the CMD of Biocon Limited. Welcome to the show, ma'am, and privileged to have your time.
Thanks, Rakhee.
Let's look at your early childhood, ma'am. We know that you've come up in your career to a large extent and you have arrived as such now, somebody who we look up to. But take us to your childhood and how was it like?
Well, since this is a special focus on Karnataka, I am a die-hard Bangalorean. I was born in Bangalore, I grew up in Bangalore, I went to school, I did my BSc from Bangalore University, and I grew up in a city that I was very proud of, something that was so beautiful. It was the true garden city of India. Today, of course, it's very different, you know, because of this boom in the IT and biotech sectors and many other sectors. Bangalore has just grown out of proportion.
How do you think it has changed now?
Well, you know, it's growing so rapidly and in, if I may so, an ad hoc manner that this once beautifully organized city seems chaotic. Infrastructure is crumbling. We used to, you know, brag about having best infrastructure in the country, but today it's not so. And if you measure Bangalore on many fronts, we don't fare so well.
Mm-hmm. What you have become today, we would like to go back and understand how and why. You took up this job of being a brewmaster, but before that to college. Take us to those days and how you took your career as such.
Well, you know, Rakhee, interestingly, I actually wanted to become a doctor. I couldn't get into medical school, so I did my BSc Zoology honors instead. And once I did that, I came to the crossroads of my life where I said I wanted to pursue a career where in biology, in life sciences. And that's what made me pursue an academic phase, which was about brewing technology, thanks to my late father, who himself was a brewmaster and wanted one of his children to follow his footsteps.
But you would say it happened by accident, not by choice initially?
No, the brewing part of it was by choice. I actually went to Australia. I came back as India's first female brewmaster.
Yes, exactly.
I tried to get a job in all the breweries that I could find, any of the breweries I could find in India, but they kind of shut the door on me.
So tell us about that challenge.
Yeah, that was a gender challenge. Basically, they respected my academic excellence, but they basically said to me that it was very difficult for them to consider me as a person who was going to manage their breweries. Because I was a woman, and they felt that it was not going to be easy for a woman to deal with labor unions, to deal with a completely male cadre in terms of management and so on and so forth. I had no problems, but they had. So with that disillusionment, it was an accidental encounter with an Irish entrepreneur, a biotech entrepreneur, that got me started in terms of building my own biotech company. So that was the accidental entrepreneur bit.
But how do you see the difference between what you did, let's say, on the foreign shores and now back home in India? Did you find any difference in terms of the professional approach or perspective?
You know, I had not had any experience working in India at that stage. So my entire experience was in Australia. And since I went straight from that into building my own company, I applied all that I'd learnt in Australia when I built my own organization. So today when I see the way Biocon is run compared to how companies are run overseas, I don't see much of a difference.
And women, as you rightly said, the challenging period that you saw, how do you think the journey has really taken its path ahead of women breaking the glass ceiling, women taking on the roads that have never been traveled on?
Well, you know, I'm still expecting much more from women in this country, because I know that they have this enormous potential, but most of them have not allowed to really realize that potential, largely because of a lack of self-belief. I know that things were very different when I started Biocon in 1978. Things are so different today. I think women have all the support they need and all the kind of strong, infrastructure and policies and, both fiscal and otherwise to help them get started. But I still find them not, setting themselves greater challenges. I still find them pursuing small opportunities. I think that's where I would like to see women addressing bigger opportunities.
In Biocon itself, ma'am, how you're trying now to reach out to the masses? You're working also for the people who are at the margins of the society, and you're taking, let's say, pharma to them who can't afford it in a big way. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, as someone who started my, whole business, my business on a philosophy of making a difference, when I moved my business from enzymes, in the case of enzymes, it was making a difference in terms of environmental and eco-friendly solutions. But when it came to biopharmaceuticals, which is what I now moved to, I think it was about affordable medicines, about affordable innovation, and it was really, with a view to increasing access to patients, since 85% of drugs are paid for out of pocket.
Exactly. So healthcare is something that you think. What's your thought on it, in the sense that?
Well, we don't even have the semblance of a national healthcare system. I think government has not played the role it should in delivering healthcare to its people, and therefore what you see today is an ecosystem where 90% or 85% of the healthcare infrastructure is in the private sector. 85% of healthcare spends is out of pocket. So the government only is, delivering on maybe 15% of healthcare, and that's grossly inadequate. So even if it increases its spend,
but somebody would say that government is still, NRHM schemes. Government is trying to reach to rural areas that maybe private would not really bother much to reach.
Yeah, but are they doing a good job? That's what really we need to see. I think in this country we focus too much on the symbolism of doing things without really assessing the effectiveness of doing it. So I think when you look at the rural health schemes, that I agree are very, very important, but you see the way primary health centers are run. Okay, primary health centers in rural areas are very badly run. In fact, they're not run at all, because you don't have doctors coming to these centers. You don't have the right kind of medication available to the patients when they need it. You don't have any infrastructure to do basic diagnostics. So what are we talking about? I think that's where we as a company have decided we must make a difference. Yeah. So we, through our corporate social responsibility, have set up a micro health insurance system and a cluster of primary health centers in rural Karnataka to see if we can actually work with the government to deliver better health care.
There's so much that I'm sure you're trying to do. We are talking to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw right now here in the Quest. Please watch the show. We'll come back after a very short break. You are watching the Quest, and we are talking to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. This Bangalore Political Action Committee that you envisioned, tell us more about that. How did it all happen, and why do you think there should be something like this where you have to intervene in the political system?
Well, it really came out of the breaking point that citizens had reached in Bangalore. As I mentioned earlier, Bangalore has always been a very well administered city, a beautiful city where everything worked wonderfully well. And today, everything seems to have gone wrong. Our roads are in a bad condition. It was the garbage crisis that really got us all thinking.
That was the trigger.
That was the breaking point. And I think we all kind of looked at how the city was governed, and we felt that something had to be done. And we realized that, the main issue with politics in our country is that people don't engage with the political system. We just sort of, are bystanders. We don't want to be a part of the political system, and yet, we are supposed to elect our political leaders to be our representatives, to be serving society, But on the other hand, I think politicians consider their political victories as a passport to privilege.
So what are the gaps that you're really focusing on or working on right now as a committee?
So, when we look at Bangalore's problems, we said let's form a Bangalore Political Action Committee where we focus on how do we get our politicians to deliver better governance for us, and through better governance we want to build a better city and a better quality of life for our citizens. I think that was really the main intent of
and how would you go about it? What is the kind of road that you want to take on?
So I think it all starts with exercising your franchise. So I think we found that most urban educated middle class don't even bother to cast their vote, because like you and I have often heard people say, does my vote really count? And actually the fact is it does count, but people don't even understand that. So what we as BPAC did was to basically start sensitizing and building awareness about how your vote matters. Now in that we actually educated people that in a city like Bangalore, 30% of our population is represented by our youth between the age of 18 to 30. But less than 5% of them vote. And in a city like Bangalore, where there is a huge population in terms of IT professionals and other young professionals who actually come from all parts of the country, they are even less engaged with Bangalore. And yet their votes do count.
Some would say, why only Bangalore, why not other places?
Absolutely, but we want to start with Bangalore, and others are welcome to emulate what we are doing in Bangalore.
So you are basically trying to shake this apathy that we saw in, let's say, the urban people or the upper middle class, so to say, which always thought that it's only
It's not the upper middle class, it's the middle class, it's the educated urban middle class. I think we realize that Bangalore today, in terms of its sheer population size, accounts for 20% of Karnataka's population. In terms of GDP contribution, Bangalore contributes 60% of Karnataka's population. And yet we find that the entire focus is always on rural Karnataka, and the government is not investing in Bangalore. And if you choke Bangalore, Karnataka is not going to be very healthy. So I think we are trying to get our politicians to understand that you've got to invest in Bangalore, and we are the urban educated. So we know what it means to invest in Bangalore, and therefore we started BPAC, and we have an agenda for Bangalore which is about good governance, which is about good infrastructure, which is about a safer city.
Madam, some would say that there are certain problems that every time in a poll scenario we see, for example, the huge expenditure that happens. There are so many other challenges that even now Election Commission is trying to kind of work or sort out. So how would you look at that?
So that is another area we are kind of addressing through BPAC, saying how do you legitimize political funding? See, the reason why you have so much of illicit money being used in politics is because you need to fight politics with money. And if you can't get legitimate money, everyone then starts looking for illicit money.
And how are you trying to really sort that out?
So what we are trying to say is, look guys, I think you must legitimize funding. So if to begin with we want to actually fund candidates through legitimate funding, which means that based on what the Election Commission approves per candidate, to that extent we would like to make contributions. First starting from BPAC, but we want all citizens of Bangalore to start doing funding. Now, Obama did that. This is called crowdsourcing. So if you actually, do online funding, you can actually do it. So we are trying to do that for the political system.
And how exactly are you going about it, ma'am? I mean, in terms of intervening, I mean, you're saying there should be a candidate who should have all these parameters of handling good governance. So, but how exactly are you working on it?
Okay, so when we choose our candidates to begin with, we are looking at a few metrics, like saying, how educated is this candidate? We want to have a minimum level of education for sure, because that's one thing we've all been talking about, but we really haven't done much to address it.
Qualifications for
right? So should there be at least an educated politician who knows what the challenge is, who knows what policy making is, who knows what delivery on those policies is. Then you look at, for instance, the next aspect, which is what is their track record of performance. If they are a serving political political person, then what is their track record in politics? And if they are not, if they are first time entrants, then what is their track record in social service? Have they done anything for society? And then the third most important thing is, what is their criminal record all about?
So a complete audit, so to say.
So it's just about making sure that people who are at least in the fray of politics are decent people, who have a very decent view of social service. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do to begin with.
Yeah.
And most importantly for BPAC, we want to make sure that those people whom we endorse will be aligned with what we want for Bangalore.
That's the key question. But ma'am, when we talk about, let's say, the corporate section and the governance or the political system, there is still a gap in the sense that each is seen not together but maybe in isolation. So you are trying to somewhere kind of also say that, oh, we have a stake when as far as politics is concerned.
This is not about corporates, this is about citizens. I want to make that very clear distinction, because everybody tries to, confuses BPAC because a few of us come from the corporate sector. They keep thinking this is a corporate initiative. It is not. It is a citizens initiative. Apart from me and Mohandas Pai, we've got people from all walks of life. We've got sports people like Ashwini Nachappa and Nisha Millet. We've got people from the art and culture scene like Vani Ganpati and Prasad Bidappa and Prakash Belwandi and others. And then we've got people from the academic sector like Nurain Fazal and others. And we've got people even from other parts of the corporate milieu like the media and the advertising and branding businesses.
So bringing everybody together.
So we're trying to bring everybody together because this is a citizens movement.
Yeah. So we are now talking to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw in the quest that you're watching right now. We're going for a very short break again. Please stay on. You're watching The Quest with me here, and we are talking to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. Also another thing now, social media is really intervening a lot this time. In fact, in Karnataka itself, we are seeing it in a big way. How do you look at this phenomena?
I think it's a great phenomenon, and I think everyone, whether you're a politician or a citizen or a corporate, I think you do need to understand what social media is all about. Okay, it's a powerful platform. You can reach out to people in an amazing way. So, for instance, this time in our focus on voting, we actually used online registration. Okay, and we actually spread that message about registering online, both on social media as well as through campus and resident building. I mean, these resident cooperatives.
Yeah.
We went to all the residential complexes, corporate campuses, academic college campuses, and we actually had a huge effort on enrolling new voters and getting them to register online. And this was done with our partners, Smart Vote.
But this new enthusiasm we are seeing in some political leaders, as you are also watching, this whole, somebody would say, a war going on, where everybody is trying to really catch on and sections being drawn in. You understand that?
Well, it's good because, for a long time these politicians have lived in isolation. They've kind of not really connected with the people. Today they suddenly realize that they're being watched, that there's transparency. They can no longer hide from public glare, so to speak. So I'm glad they're beginning to engage with social media because they need to understand what people think of them. How they need to communicate what they want to do to the people at large, and what better way than social media. I also wanted to mention here, Rakhee, that thanks to our e-efforts or these online efforts, you will be very interested to know that in a period of 2 months, we have been able to register online over 600,000 new voters.
Oh, that's a very interesting figure that you're giving. And talking about Karnataka polls this time, what are the big issues? Of course, garbage, as you mentioned, and the city being cleaner. Are there some more issues that you're especially focusing on or pointing at?
See, we want a safer city. We want a city that's safe for women. You know, I think you've been reading about all these awful incidents of,
Especially
you
here
know,
also
in Bangalore itself, you've seen a lot of these rape cases. We want to make this a rape-free city. We want to make this a safe city.
Talking again about this women issue and how this whole area of women empowerment is being looked at. You're trying to say that, you know, women as catalysts, we are saying, of social change or economic change also. How do you think the path is being looked at right now?
Well, the first thing is it starts with sensitization. It'll start with educating our school children, our college-going children about the importance of the role of women in society. How do you get them to understand that? And then basically getting women to understand that there are these important economic opportunities which they should definitely engage with. They should not think that they are not part of that economic mainstream. I think that's the biggest problem.
A bill in the parliament, is that enough?
I mean, you can have as many bills, but it's up to the women to, you know, rise to the challenge. I think if women constantly believe that their job as a mother and raising kids is more important than anything else, then you'll never find women seriously engaged in the economic
Now, coming back
mainstream.
to BPAC quickly also, how do you really see planning to take it ahead in terms of, you want to reach out, you're talking about the mayor's position, you're talking about legislative scenario in the state, then further in the parliament. So how do you really want to take the journey?
Well, you know, BPAC wants to cut across all the political strata. So right now we are looking at the MLA elections. That's where we are engaging with all the political people and the parties. You know, next will come the MP elections. So that's going to be the next level. And then finally, our main aim is to really focus on the council. So the councillors election, where we want actually people from, resident welfare associations. We want many more people and citizens to get engaged with that council level election. And I think people are beginning to get very interested. So unless you get very good citizens' participation in the political system, you are not going to see any change. Though this time around we are endorsing a few candidates who are first timers, who are citizens. They may not win, but at least this is a time for us to try and support such candidates.
And what are your hopes like, ma'am?
I think we are at least going to see some amount of change. Of course, in Karnataka this time around, it's a very interesting time because, you know, you've seen that there has been a fragmentation of the BJP. You have seen that there's been a lot of disgruntled citizens in terms of the ruling government. So there's a good chance that the opposition has a very good chance, both in the form of Congress and JDS. So, you know, there's a lot of things happening this time around. It is going to, you know, come up with a, I'm sure, a new government with new thinking. And I think that's where we want to engage. I must also say that I myself have engaged very closely with the government because I chaired Karnataka's vision group on biotechnology. And I, for one, have found that when you actually engage with government, it is amazing what you can do.
So all the best for your vision, ma'am, and all the best to the citizenship. We should grow and grow largely in Bangalore. Since we are here in Bangalore, all the very best to you and to the city also. As we are going for the poll. So here we were talking to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar. Hope you enjoyed watching the quest here. Please give us your feedback. Bye.